comments, any amendments, any requests, alibis?
I have no problem moving the
I have no problem minutes.
Gordon? You good? Alright, let's get a motion.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Of course. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you very much. Communications and announcements, report from staff.
Good evening. I do have a couple of updates. First, I'd like to report back on a couple of items that were heard at the March 28th meeting. The first of which were the series of applications that was heard regarding the Ocean One project. That project did move forward to City Commission and was approved at the last City Commission meeting. The other item that was heard at the March 20th Planning and Development Board meeting was the car wash amendments. That amendment has not moved forward yet, and it is tentatively scheduled for May 16th. Other than that, I have one other piece of information which saddens me to share. We have 3 members of the committee that are that their memberships is expired, and they have termed out. We are expecting that the board, as it sits now, continue to operate in this capacity until different appointments are made. Those 3 board members are Trevor, Butch, and Chris Simon.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to see you guys go. Thank you all for your service, and hopefully we have at least a few more meetings until we get new appointments.
I can't leave now?
No, please don't. and that's all I have.
Alright, so when will we expect it? Should we reapply through the standard?
It's my understanding that you will not be eligible for reappointment since you've already served 2 full terms.
Good.
But please reach out to the clerk's office. That is my understanding. I'm not the deciding factor.
Okay.
Question for Amanda.
Yes, sir.
You're saying if you serve 2 full terms, you can't reapply. But what happens if no one applies? We need a quorum.
I don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
I will say we currently do have applications coming in for vacancies, so I don't think that that's going to be the issue. The way I understand the rules right now, you are allowed to serve 2 2-year terms concurrently. So I think you would at least need 1 term off before you are eligible again for appointment by the commission for the board.
What year was I appointed?
I don't have that information, but we can get with the clerk's office.
2014.
I'm not going to comment on that, but
Tell me about that.
I'm, off the record, I'm like, I think Trevor's been here as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
I'm not
obviously
sure.
this is something new that they've written.
It is not new. I don't believe it's new. I know that there were some amendments to this section, but not recently. So unclear.
Mhm.
I would reach out to the clerk's office to confirm your eligibility or not.
Okay.
It's their job, not mine.
What is the last meeting that we would be serving?
I would assume that we're just gonna show up one day and they're gonna say, sorry, somebody's already, somebody got approved last.
So
City Commission
technically,
meeting.
the board, the sheet that I have shows your membership until March 2023, but they have not reappointed seats yet. The last meeting, they actually tabled that item,
Mhm.
so it's unclear when we will get new appointments.
So continue to.
Continue to please serve, yes.
Until someone else is appointed.
Continue to please
Okay.
continue serving.
question for alternates. I'm currently an alternate. Why isn't consideration given to the alternates who have an application on file for an open planning board seat not to be considered for a regular seat?
That is a great question for the clerk's office.
Can I answer that? Because I was an alternate. And when I inquired about it, I was told that I had to apply for regular membership. There was no automated process that even exists
That
for me
seems
to be
silly.
considered.
Because
I had to file a
I've already
membership.
done this. I did that before this cycle appointment. But I understand.
Yeah.
So you gain almost institutional knowledge as an alternate, but you stay an alternate unless you reach out and say.
Exactly right.
So you'd have to
There's
stay on top of board
There is
openings
no
and all
provision
that?
in the law
But
that
I also
automatically
see.
updates an alternate.
I also see our legal team and also some other very key leadership staff here, and they are involved in some of this, and they can make recommendations if it's good for the city and for the board. If it's not, sometimes there's board members that you'd like to see go, you know, and fresh people come in, and there's certainly nothing on staff because
Don't
it's
look at
good
me
for
when he says that.
No,
I will note that.
I look in the mirror when I say that.
I will note that the commission has recently requested some recommendations from our management team regarding all of Chapter 27, which are the advisory boards. So there may be some new information coming out. The commission is discussing those things now. So that may be one of the items that come up also.
Is priority still given to landscape architecture, civil engineering, and
Yes.
the trades that are more closely related to planning and development?
Yes.
Interesting. Oh, well, thanks for the great news.
Please keep coming.
For my wife, anyway. All right. That's it. Any other questions on that item? Any announcements? Hearing none. Old business. All right, we'll hear 6A here. The read it all. Approved modifications to existing use, amending the land development regulations to establish indoor athletic construction training use as an accessory use.
Where's your file? Open.
Right. Good evening, board members. My name is Craig Pender, excuse me, and I will be presenting this item to you all. The next slide, please. During the last meeting, this item was tabled, so this will be a pretty quick presentation. As a reminder, this is a code amendment to establish the indoor athletic construction training as an accessory use within the REC zoning district. Next slide, please. This use will be subject to footnote number 21, which states that this use will only be allowed on city-operated and owned, city-operated and owned park facilities. So basically, any property that is zoned REC and that is not city-owned or operated, this use will not be eligible. Next slide, please. On this slide, we can see some of the other accessory uses that are currently permitted within the REC zoning district. Some of them are subject to footnote number 21 already, as that footnote is already established within the use regulation. And we are available for any questions.
All right, so real quick, I'm going to allow the one member of the public who wants to speak on this to speak for a brief moment. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We don't.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barbara Reedy, R-E-A-D-Y. I see that this is on the agenda for you tonight to consider. Just to let you know, I've researched this deal. I mean, we can pretend that it doesn't have anything to do with the indoor training facility plan for the Little League field, but it does. According to the contract, Resolution 22-160 and Resolution 23-019, the city represents and warrants to the developer that the city has the full power and authority to enter into this agreement. I'm a little curious if they have the full power and authority to enter into this agreement, why are we doing retroactive house cleaning? This has kind of been done in a rush, I believe, the project, and I have concerns that this could turn into Town Square 2.0. That's all.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. All right, board. Mr. Cortland, anything?
Not yet, but.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Chair, if I may,
Please.
thank you. At the last meeting, it was requested that our Parks and Rec director make it to the meeting. He unfortunately could not. However, he did send me an email to please read into the record if you wouldn't mind. Good afternoon. I just wanted to provide the impacts of the proposed amendment for indoor training facilities will provide on the City of Boynton Beach for the P&D board meeting. First, the training opportunities in the City of Boynton Beach. Next, increased usage of Little League Park. The agreement, the Little League agreement, provides for park improvements that include a new synthetic turf field, scoreboard, entrance signage, and parking. The lease agreement with Primetime Sports will generate revenue for the use of the property. Sports tourism for the City of Boynton Beach. Training facilities will attract professional athletes. Programming opportunities for camps, clinics, and tournaments. Synthetic turf field provides more availability, less maintenance, and downtime for renovations. The decrease of maintenance costs to Little League Park by converting a grass field to turf, and additional field space by adding new fields for Little League Park, T-ball program, and other programs. If you have any questions or need additional information, please let me know.
Alright, so I don't wanna get us too in the weeds on the actual project and stay in the code, but there are a lot of questions that can relate to the code about the project as well. Jay, you have
Yeah,
something?
one question for me. Are there any negative aspects to adopting this resolution? I'm hard pressed to see what the problem is.
Staff is recommending approval of this amendment. We do believe and agree with the Parks and Rec Department that this opens up programming for city parks. It increases revenue and allows these programs to grow in a way that they couldn't otherwise. As you could see on your screen, we are already doing this in the land development regulations. Other uses are included as this accessory to rec zoning districts. There are plenty of them, and this would be simply an addition to the list of what's already working in the code.
Alright, I have a question if you guys will let me. Is there a requirement for parking? Is there a requirement, because this indoor facility and the changes that might take place could potentially remove some of the parking that's for overflow?
All of the standards in the LDRs will remain in effect. So yes, there will be parking requirements for any new structures.
Alright, now I know I didn't wanna talk about the specific project, but the project itself takes away parking because it might not consider parking, but if you go there on a busy night, if people are parking, and that's why I wish the Parks and Rec guy would take the time to come to this meeting and answer
I
some
will
questions.
say the project is not approved. Planning and zoning has not reviewed it for parking yet, so please let's not talk about it in frame of a project
Okay.
because it hasn't come through planning and zoning. We are going to require parking. The schematics that I saw add parking to the site plan. Again, they were schematics, nothing has been formally submitted, but we do understand the needs, and no one understands the needs more than the Parks and Recs department. They would not burden that property more than needed.
The project, the plans, are they, any plans that come up in these parks for these facilities, are they gonna pass through this board, or are they just pass through the department?
The rest of the LDRs will remain in effect, so it depends on the scale of the project.
I will say,
So-
as it's contemplated now, under the agreement, it will pass, the site plan approval will have to come to this board.
Yeah, alright.
Thank you.
So one of the questions that I guess I have is to get the city wrapped up, and I'm not against this, I just want to stay on record, I think this is fine, and I can prepare personally, I think I would move. But I would really like, I'm not sure I will get, clarity on the lease agreement between the two parties, being the city and whatever this outfit is called, I forget. So, I mean, how long is, what is the terms, can we know some basic terms of this lease agreement?
I do not know those, so I can't share them. The city attorney may.
The reason why, I've witnessed the city get into lease agreements recently and a long time ago that were very structured and controlled, with precaution to the wind. Is that already executed?
I believe so. I believe it's been executed and there was a recent amendment to it as well.
Okay, well, I mean, it's water under the bridge, so, I'm just gonna say I'm ready to move on this if the board is.
The contract has already been closed.
I believe the lease if I'm speaking, please, but I believe the lease agreement has already went to city commission, was approved.
Cart going before the horse.
I missed it.
Fine.
So this amendment would have to go through in order for the site plan to be approved. So if this doesn't get approved by the city commission, then the site plan wouldn't pass.
Yeah, I
because
get
it
you.
wouldn't- yeah.
So a couple thoughts on this, and thank you for staff for the work that you did on this. We're amending the land development regulations for this in this specific REC zoning district, correct? Was there any thought or debate, consideration for allowing it more, for example, a commercial endeavor to do the same type of, because this situation, they have to partner with the city, it's on city land, it would have to be a public-private partnership. Is there any consideration in the land development regulations for, say, Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan wanted to do an indoor training facility, but not partner with the city on city land or in the REC zoning district? Is there an opportunity for them to do that?
Yes, that already
citywide?
exists, so we are not creating this use, we are simply adding it
Okay.
to the rec
That's
zone
what the
district.
amendment is, just amending
Yes.
that. I didn't read that.
Yes, it's just adding it to the rec zoning district, the use already exists and is permitted, through our commercial properties.
Okay, and then, just a side thought on the accessory uses, brew pub and restaurant kind of pop out as commercial uses. How did they fit into, as an accessory use? Is it more like at a golf course, you would have a restaurant and that would be the accessory?
Or a
use
concession
of the
stand
winery?
in a ball field, those types of
Okay.
uses.
Thank you, okay, thank you. That's it.
Just a couple of quick ones. You mentioned that just for this particular project, that there's gonna be new signage, new turf, new, there's a couple other items in there. Are those items that are, the cost is covered by the VC?
Yes, that is my understanding.
So any new costs the city does not incur any new costs by allowing this?
Yes, that is my understanding.
And then within a general rule of thumb when they're considering endeavors with private entities, is it such that the private entity can just look at the site layout of the existing park and have free reign of where they want to construct a facility, or is there designated areas where they're only able to develop?
I think that's up to the negotiations between the city and the private entity. I think it would vary largely from park to park or site to site.
Because if there's existing ball fields, I mean, it seems like as it stands, they could have a conversation and say, well, you know what, we wanna put $2 million or $8 million in this project and get rid of all your fields. Or your docks, your fishing docks, your boat ramps, whatever the case may be, and put our facility in this area, and then leave the city to kind of figure out what are they able to do with the rest of the
Yeah, so there are two
property.
things. First, the city would have to agree to that. Secondly, the uses that are permitted now in rec are only permitted as accessory uses, which means it does have to be subordinate to a public recreational use. So it would never take over the majority of the park. It really
Well,
is meant
not the
to
majority, not the
aid.
majority, but let's say somebody came in and said, I wanna sink $20 million into this property, this park only gets, they run a report, and they say this park only gets, 20 visitors, a week. So it's barely being used, and I wanna set this building right in the middle of where your current ball field is, but that doesn't leave you access to be able to keep your basketball court or keep your.
I mean, like I said, all,
I'm devil's advocate, I'm just saying, like, do we just wanna give
Well, we aren't
the
giving
private,
anything,
like, free
right?
rein?
So the land development regulations wouldn't govern that. It would be a lease agreement that the city enters into that creates limitations on what they will and what they won't allow on their property. Once that is done, when it comes to planning and zoning, we will be tasked with identifying that use as accessory. And of course, there are parks master plans we need to abide by. There are level of service standards for parks and acreage that we need to maintain. It is not by any means a free-for-all.
So there's enough verbiage and code and development regulations in place that would help prevent that from happening.
I believe so, not only in the LDRs, but in the city's comprehensive plan.
And then is there any, consideration for not-for-profit versus for-profit?
Within the LDRs, I do not believe so. This is actually a pretty good example. The Little League Park actually, I believe, has two separate agreements, one with a for-profit entity and one for a nonprofit entity. So I think both would be eligible. The zoning code does not say one way or the other, but considering this project does have two lease agreements with one of each of those entities, I believe it will be dependent on the city's willingness to negotiate with that entity, regardless.
Well, and I'm considering other, like for, some of the parks on your coastal, for example. I mean, those are prime opportunities to have not-for-profit, organizations come in, have a facility, and be an educational experience,
Yeah.
not necessarily training, but an educational experience for the local schools, camps and what have you.
We've talked about something like that for Mangrove Park before,
Right.
some sort of educational component. Absolutely, this wouldn't exclude that from happening at all.
Right, so the term indoor training facility, would that count as, could educational facility fall under that? Because it's training or educating in a sense, because I just don't see any of that already on this list, and if something like that could fall under, then I'd be even more for it.
Yeah, interesting. I think the way we define it, this particular use, it really is more in the sports realm. I think we even list things like batting and specific uses like that. But we can absolutely continue to look at this category of uses and include things that are on here if an opportunity arose and we have those opportunities. Again, these are living documents. We can absolutely add more to this list as.
We've already got brew pubs on
So,
there.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the last piece of it is, because the verbiage is pertaining to an existing, an existing contract with a private entity, and we are housekeeping and looking at this, considering this retroactively. Number one, why even bring it to us? Number two, how do we get the city from having that type of authority to be able to enter a contract with a private entity without?
So these are two different.
Without other sort of checks and balances occurring.
These are two different schools of authority. The authority for negotiations of a contract is fully within the city commission's rights. The reason we are doing this amendment is to prepare for a site plan submittal, which has not been approved by any entity yet. That is why we are doing this. It is totally separate than negotiating a contract. This board doesn't have the authority to review those contracts. This board is specific to the land development regulations and development applications.
So it doesn't have to be us.
Any board.
For the checks or balances, right?
No,
It could be another
absolutely.
department within the city or otherwise.
And it is.
So typically we would, and I'll have this because of just something you just said, is that typically we have that verbiage come to us as an agenda item that coincides with a site plan approval that is being requested on a particular meeting.
What verbiage?
Right now, we're going through this process.
Code change.
Right.
A lot of times we'll get that along with the site.
Oh,
plan.
yes.
Right, it'll be, here's.
Concurrently. We'll
Right.
run it concurrently.
Right,
Yes.
so here's two items. One is,
Mhm.
and if we deny a request for a code change,
Mhm.
then the site plan, they just don't even present.
Yes, I will
right?
say generally that is bad
So why-
practice.
Right, so why are we doing this, and then who knows, it could be 6 months, 8 months, a year later, if we get the site plan.
So generally, from the planning and zoning director's perspective, that is bad practice, to bring concurrent LDR amendments that are specific to a project, because those two things are not supposed to be linked. We make decisions based on code for the betterment of the city that we can approve in multiple locations. Code changes are city initiated and not applicant initiated. The
Then why-
applicants
then why
cannot,
do we- then why
sorry?
do we- Then why, not to interrupt, but then why do we do it that way?
We have done it in the past. Again, I would say it is not the best practice. The city wants to be proactive and make sure our LDRs can accommodate certain things, especially things that we see coming from the city commission. Again, one of those is a city-initiated action, and one of them is a privately initiated action, and they do not cross paths. And that is usually how it happens most of the time. Car washes is another thing. We've seen problems with the way it's been used, and the city brings forward amendments. Staff will bring forward amendments, or the commission will request amendments. There have been instances, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, where they do run concurrently. That is usually based on us running out of time to get them ahead of time.
Okay, you wanna make a motion?
Yeah, based on what I'm hearing, there's no objection, I don't think there's any objection on what we asked to approve. Your concern perhaps is a little more focused on the terms of the agreement, which is not our purview. But I'd like to make a motion that we accept this change in the land use regulations as stated and recommended by our staff.
Second.
All right, we have a second. It was Corbin. All right, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. I don't think we need to, but sure. You're here, boy.
Mr. Simon?
Good.
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
Mr. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Sobel?
Yes,
Mr. Remicchio?
No.
And Chair Rosecrans?
Yes. All right, thank you. Next up, the exciting stuff, folks. The discussion regarding the annual advisory board report, content and date. May I ask a question? When was the last volunteer dinner that the city provided to all the board members and volunteers?
I have no recollection of one. I don't think they've done one since I was here, and I didn't know that they used to do that.
Yes, they did.
your memory's not that good.
2017.
Was it 2017 at Benvenuto's?
Yeah.
I thought I saw you there.
Another check.
So, here we are volunteering all of our time over the years since 2017, and now we have homework. All right, I wanna apologize to the clerk. I think we're just gonna have like kind of an open discussion on this. I don't know the minutes. What do you guys feel?
Oh, I think if we identify, items, we should identify.
Yeah,
items for
that's
staff
fine.
to put together.
But, I mean, we wanna just keep it loose here to talk about.
Yeah, we should start with an open conversation.
Absolutely.
I do have one question though.
Sure.
For the members that are turning out, we wouldn't necessarily be able to, I mean, like, the chair wouldn't be able to.
Do you wanna present? Are you volunteering to present?
So,
Do they want that meeting to go on that long?
I was gonna say, I mean, if we wanna really go out and stick it to them, we could,
Yeah, I'd be fine with that, but.
In the,
Um,
10-minute
Short, so
presentation.
not even 10 minutes, it's 5 minutes.
Right, but are we even eligible to assist with the presentation if we're turning out? Technically, we're.
Well, your board members tonight, and this item's before us tonight, to
Yeah.
talk about that, so.
We can talk
Right,
about
but if we say it's sometime during
I
this
would not
year.
volunteer for us to be presenting or to be the
But
focal
your
point of it, but yeah, our
The
input
years
would
of
be
your
there.
service,
Yeah.
both of you combined, is, I think, very important to how the presentation is presented to the commission,
Mhm.
and also what is presented to the commission. It's I think it's real important that both of you
May
participate.
I ask a question, please? Who here has seen prior reports? I have been honest for you, you have. Has anyone else seen a prior report?
Well, if I, let me give some background.
What?
Maybe
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
give some
please.
background.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who was present when, the Assistant City Manager, Catherine Matos, was here, and started this. So this is a new request of the City
Okay.
Commission
That's
to have
okay.
all of the advisory boards, once a year do an annual report on what they are doing, what they would like to see change, and any content that you would like to include. The first board, I believe, went in March, and it was the Arts Board. So there's only been one so far. So there are, the first thing I think that we should decide, there are 3 different things to talk about, and I will preface this by saying, since we will have some turnover in board members in the coming months, I am foreseeing this discussion happening more than once. So don't think that we are laying everything in concrete today. But there are 3 kind of things we'd like to decide. First, I think you should pick a month in which you would like to have this presented. They're going quickly, and if we have a preference, I say we pick one. The next thing that we can talk about is content, and I would probably preface that into 2 categories. Data, like how many applications you've reviewed, what were your findings in them, the types of conditions of approval you've added. And then the second school of thought, I would recommend, again, this is your report, but I would categorize the second school of thought in what you would like to see happen in terms of planning, more of the theory. Whether you are for downtowns, would you like to see more commercial space, changes you want to see in vision and or regulations. So that I think is the second. And then the third will be the technical component of this. Who is creating the presentation and who is presenting the presentation, and those kinds of nuts and bolts of how this actually gets done. So those are the 3 categories I would suggest that we talk about. First, I think we should nail down a date. And again, the other 2 items we will continue to talk about as a board.
Nuts and bolts can be later. Jay, what's up?
Yeah, I guess you made a good comment. We're being asked to do homework. And as any good corporate executive is doing, I'm gonna wanna pass it to someone else. And quite honestly, what better source of the things we did and the things that we deliberated on in our minutes? Now, I don't know if everyone wants to read every month's minutes for the year, I sure don't. But I'm perfectly happy to stick it to your staff.
Staff is not allowed to do this. This is from the
I had
advisory
a
board.
great idea, that they would at least give us a bullet point.
I don't mind assisting, however, like what I just said verbally, I can, and by the way, I did email everyone and ask for responses, so we could have a little bit of a more guided.
Salty, I wrote them and then
No,
I deleted them.
I just like, even a bullet point presentation, what are the things that we concerned with?
Well, we
Maybe
talked
we
about
wanna
that.
each go over a month.
We talked a little bit last month, or the last meeting, I should say.
Well, I think for your item 1, if we're sticking with Amanda's kind of like her 3
Yeah.
kind of points, right? For the presentation, even if the staff can't necessarily do the work for us, if the staff can provide like I said, a bullet point or a list of the projects that were the items that came before us, even if we have to go back through all the agendas and kind of pull them out.
Yeah.
That way we can at least say, there was
Absolutely.
14 projects over this last year, and potentially.
I'm happy to do that,
If
sure.
there's not a, I mean, this is the first one, so it's
Yes.
really, we're just doing it over this calendar, or this year, rather than our history that we've been on before, right? So.
Right.
Would you be willing to make a list of those that we voted down, that went to the commission and got voted up?
That was kind of where I was headed next. So, yes.
That honestly would take some staff time. I can absolutely bring you what was before you and your actions.
Chair.
Yes.
I
Please.
think what we can do to address all of that, like we mentioned and others, why don't we all just ping pong Amanda and her team 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 bullets of what we think she can curate them, take out the dupes, put them on the next agenda item.
Yeah, that's kind of what you're trying to do.
And we'll clean it up. I mean, this is not,
Thank you.
we can do it that way.
Yeah,
And,
I think Chris and I are trying to air grievances here before we're out.
and we can't CC each other because of sunshine, Amanda, right?
I mean, honestly, isn't it every project or whatever?
Yes, which is-
And then as far as the date, is, May available?
So the list is on the screen of what's available. It is not, so the next possible one would be June, October, November, and December.
Chairman, I vote we should take June now, but.
Can we just have start with your original, idea, which was for us to have a open conversation in yours with the round robin to kind
Yeah.
of, let's talk about it, because a couple things. One, we're losing two key members of our board, so one thought is we wanna do it really soon if you guys are gonna be part of that, because obviously we're having discussion with you. The other is maybe it should be pushed later in the year to allow the new board to get settled and talk, but I have a couple other thoughts I want you guys to discuss for a few minutes on the items that should be presented to the commission. For example, first and foremost, process. I honestly believe when you look at not only the item tonight, but a lot of the items that, when we look at the Town Square, for example, how that project had that very short timeline and the amount of work that had to be done with that, and just et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty much almost everything is almost it comes to us after the developer has already gone down the road, so to say. So I think I know we're not the official planning agency for the city, it's the city commission. I'm hoping in the future, as the board develops and you have good quality people like we have on the board currently, that more of that authority will lie with, as a quasi-judicial board, with the board instead of the ultimate authority with the commission. Because when you really look at our recommendations and how many, and how they actually voted, it's really, there's just not the communication or the relationships or the understanding of where we all need to go as a city in rowing in the same direction. So that it is very important. The second after process, and I can go on and on with that, is future planning. You know, as we're looking at amending the CRA plan, citywide master plan, the LDR, comp plan amendments, large scale, small scale, possibly with the mall redevelopment, et cetera. I really believe we need to engage this board and the commission in a workshop setting where it's a Saturday or whatever it is, but this board should be part of whether it's the CRA or sitting as the commission or the commission together, that we all talk together about the vision for the city and then create the zoning, the LDRs and the land use regulations that follow that for future. I realize this is all done with a commission and boards previous to us, and that was their vision, and based on the information, TOD, et cetera, of how the city should look, and I understand all of that. But I think now, in looking at how Palm Beach County is growing and what is happening with the infrastructure and building in the Ag Reserve and just so many different things. For example, I live literally less than 2 miles from City Hall, and it took me almost 25 minutes, literally, to go straight down Boynton Beach Boulevard from Lawrence Road to City Hall. So the second is that future planning, that we're involved in that early on, so that when projects come to us like Town Square, that it's not us all saying no, 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 and then it goes to the commission and it's yes, 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 yes. It's just not a good, healthy yin and yang for the city to move forward. And then comp plan, as I mentioned earlier, we need to determine what we want as a city. I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, Mayor Grant made a statement, and it was really just real damning, because it was a presentation made by Mike Rumpf on changing the land use regulations to allow a PUD. It had a different zoning designation, and our land use regulation, and Mike was recommending to go back to the PUD, and, it got up to the commission, and Mayor Grant asked, he said, how was this initiated? So this is a staff recommendation, we're recommending this change. And the mayor said, quote, I thought we'd allow the developers to decide our zoning and our land use regulation. And it was just like so damning, I was like, oh my Lord, it's just like, this is part of.
Was it snark?
So, no, it was real, it was genuine, it was because all of the conversation around it led to exactly that. And so I wanna make sure the mall, there's a lot of big things that could happen to Boynton. I wanna make sure that we're at that table, and I don't think, unless we have that conversation, this type of thinking with future planning, process, and how everything fits together to really make isn't it about making good decisions and good recommendations
This
to the
board,
city?
this board should be, you know, almost like a partnership with the commission.
I mean, so.
Chair, Rosencrantz.
I hope that when the final, that we allow some of these other, so that it's not just, you know, and Amanda's items were perfect, but maybe we can add these other three that become a little more long-range planning and short-term goals.
I think this board is a specialty, a little bit special
Just
board.
one last thing, sir.
It doesn't fit into the others.
The CIP for the city, for example, the capital improvements, you know, when you look at a 10-year snapshot or a 5-year snapshot, I like to see the city building things on their own, not just driven by developers, but the city actually improving their infrastructure and having an actual plan, whether it's a new clubhouse at the golf course or, you know, parks or whatever it may be, that we're always built, and I don't mean building and developing from a builders and developers standpoint, but from a progressive standpoint, that we're progressing and evolving as a city, and that do you follow me? So I just wanna see more of that in the planning process and more of a marriage with the commission, and I would like that part of our presentation to the commission, that somehow they allow that to happen, whether it's an annual meeting, because the commission's gonna change every other year, they're staggered terms. So as you get new people, you get new ideas. Commissioner Kelly, this was one of her ideas, that we have an annual report from the board. I think it's good, because again, it starts with communication, and until we have that, they're not gonna read all the minutes. I mean, I read all the minutes of everything only because I'm a junkie, but, I understand why, you know, they didn't wanna read all this stuff. So just some thoughts.
Yeah, Chair, respectfully, I agree, Tom, I think that's all great what you said, but I think this would not be a productive forum for it. I think we should send our information to Amanda at the next meeting, boil it down to the 10 or 20 things, hammer it out together as a team, because I'm getting ideas when Tom's speaking,
Mhm.
Chair, when you're
Well,
speaking.
that's why I was gonna lobby for a late year presentation for this. You guys aren't gonna be able to knock this
Okay.
thing out if there's
down with that.
ideas. Sure. But that doesn't stop us from having a discussion now.
Okay.
The sun's down already, I missed it.
Sure.
Jay,
My question to Amanda, someone mentioned this. Under the sunshine rules, we're not allowed to exchange information amongst ourselves, is that correct?
Well, it depends on the information.
Well, I'm not sure why, but any one of us can send information to you.
Yes,
And
that
you
that
can
part is
digest
absolutely
it.
true.
And in a sense, let's face it, we have to trust our staff, because we're an advisory board. They don't have to listen to anything we say. This is not a legally constituted zoning commission in Northern City whose word is law. And the city commission and the staff really are making the decisions. When I first came on this board, and Ed Breeze, your predecessor, I said to Ed, how many times when we say no, you know, did it actually end up that way? He said never. The city commission makes their mind up. We are an advisory board, and we have to bear that in mind. I think we can make some suggestions, and maybe you can distill down what each of us wants to send you. But I don't really think it's gonna be productive if each of us throws out to everybody else in a meeting like this for 3 hours, every little nitpick that we saw. With all due respect, I'm not interested in that. I'd like to digest down because our presentation has to be succinct. They're not gonna pay attention to, you know, if we get into the woodwork, they're not interested in that.
Can you send us a copy of the presentation that was given in the March?
Sure, absolutely. The arts board. What I could do that I think I'm hearing is something along the lines of what I attempted to do for this month, but what I can shape it a little bit more. I could kind of write down the categories that I'm seeing you guys talk about, ask you guys to return that form to me, and then I can then condense all that information into a single form, and, you know, remove duplicates or try and concisely state some common themes, and I can distribute that via the next agenda. So you all will have at least 4 or 5 days to review that backup, and then we can come prepared to discuss at least that form. Again, we're talking about a 5-minute presentation, so I would consider something along the lines of 12 slides. It's not a lot.
Alright, so let's do item 1, pick a month. I'd say guys go late in the year, because there's a solid chance that Chris, Butch, and I aren't gonna be here, and you're gonna need a little bit of time to get the other partners up and running.
And something to keep in mind as we pick a date also is whatever date we pick, please consider we need time to get it on the agenda, and our lead times are about 3 weeks to put it on the agenda.
So
So
October
if-
would be no problem.
Right, so for October, we would need it, sometime in September in order to get it on the agenda for October. And, once we pick a month, I can tell you exactly what those dates would
Think about
be.
holidays and who's gonna be here and who's not.
December is always a tough month in general for commission meetings. They usually end up going down to just one meeting. So I would avoid
Yeah.
December in my opinion.
And November and December, because that's where we usually either combine or they just get tossed.
Yes.
Something goes on. So you guys wanna pick October, and we can at least get that over
October
with?
is budgeting also. I'll put that out there.
I'm here year round.
June or October, really, because January, February, March already passed.
Pencil us in,
Which month?
October.
Consensus?
We don't need to vote, do we?
No.
None of it, just
Yeah,
generally,
so then-
okay.
So just stop pressuring us, man.
Head nods.
Alright, we're going October. We accomplished something on that agenda. Do you guys wanna discuss any more?
Just a quick question is, so,
Quick.
back to the fact that a couple of us are termed out and we don't know when we're gonna be. As the calendar falls right now, will we be present during next month's board meeting?
Either up here or out there.
Well,
If-
this might
if
be our
someone-
last chance to even say anything, right? So do we say it
Do you
now?
really expect them to nominate replacements in that time? It's not
They already
really-
have,
It's already done.
They already have.
They tabled the item, so they already have their.
Yeah, that's already ready to go. It's the next meeting, they'll probably.
But they have, so just for some context, they have tabled this item twice at least to my knowledge. And I think that part of the decision to table is based around possible amendments to the advisory board chapter that we have talked about. So it is very unclear if they're going to want for the appointments to wait until the advisory board chapter is updated, or if they will decide to appoint, and things may change once the advisory board chapter is updated. So I don't have a really good answer. They can appoint at any commission meeting. They do have some applicants there, which is why I'm asking you to please keep coming. Once someone is appointed, I will contact you personally. I won't leave it to the clerk's office, so you guys know.
Can you let us know before we walk in the doors?
I will try my hardest.
No, stop.
Would any consideration be made, since there is some time, for consideration for me to be a regular board member, since we're losing Trevor, Butch?
You gotta talk to the clerk, man.
Well, no, I
Board
think-
member Amicio, you could just apply. I think that the
I
way the
already
process.
have.
Oh, okay.
To the board, to be a regular member. So,
Okay.
yeah, I had applied prior to the appointment that was just made with the clerk. Cause I've been an once I saw that I was under since I've always sat as a board member and never as an alternate, because always.
Okay, so
feel
if you could
that
please
I-
reach out to me separately, I don't believe I saw your name on the latest appointment list, so it might be
No,
that
it's
once,
not,
okay.
it's not on there.
Which means you would
I-
need to reapply, in my understanding.
Okay, I did fill out an application, I wasn't on there to be appointed, that's all.
Okay, I will
So
look into
part of
it.
the problem is there's some confusion with my service on the Historic Preservation Board.
Yes.
That, there's been an epiphany that now I can't serve on the 2 boards that I serve on.
On 2 quasi judicial boards, I believe that's
The-
correct.
The Historic Board, I don't know of any, items quasi judicially that we ever handle, we don't do public hearings or anything.
All the ordinances you handle are public hearings, so any designations of properties are ordinances and public hearings.
Okay, is that, okay, that's, so I'm considered, why after all these years that they, yeah.
Great questions for the clerk's office. I apologize, I don't have all the answers in this realm.
For 8 years and they're telling me I should have been gone.
Trevor, apply. Chair, please apply, maybe.
I had talked over with my wife.
I can read you that.
We're giving you
Because it
a-
says, upon completion of the maximum allowable 2 full terms of membership, no member shall be eligible for reappointment to the same advisory board and committee for a period of 1 year unless otherwise approved by the commission.
Aha, so there's a loophole unless otherwise
Yeah,
approved
gotta
by
get a
the,
grovel.
So there's a term limit unless you're otherwise approved by the commission.
Well, I mean, by the way, I just went through this to extreme extents, so I'm pretty familiar with the nuances of what
Yeah.
you're, I'm allowed to talk outside of this chamber on that issue, is that accurate, or is that a sunshine issue?
For what?
For appointments and what you can do and how you can remain and keep your seat.
Yeah, because that's not,
Yeah,
that would be.
I'll be glad to share that with you guys after if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it seems, I mean, I'm always for fresh ideas and everything, but it seems kind of silly to dump the institutional knowledge for some of these projects that come back every 2 or 3 years
and
because the plan
Chair,
is expired.
what I would say, this board does have some technical, I won't call them requirements because the way the code reads, it's when possible.
Yeah,
And that
preference
is
given to those.
very difficult to find. So please, if you are interested in serving again, I would ask you to please reapply. Because we do have challenging times finding, I don't want to say qualified, because anyone can serve on this board,
Right.
but to really find the specialty professional backgrounds
Yeah, and
that
I-
aid in this
honestly, I think as
process.
this board stands right now, we're probably the most, we have
Qualified.
the most qualifications and I won't say diversity because we're just 9 white dudes, but we do have like a diverse amount of knowledge in different trades and different specialties that it really helps this board, I think, unless they don't pay attention to us, which is most likely what's happening, but we're here if they need them.
That could be part of our future plan, one of our objectives is that what the outcomes of these meetings, how exactly are they communicated to the commissioners?
Right.
And what conduit can we create to better inform them of our thoughts going forward?
I would almost advocate for members of the public to ask the commission meeting, hey, did you read the minutes from the planning development?
Yeah, because I get that same impression, you know, it's frustrating.
It's been that way
Yeah.
since I joined, a long time ago, since I was appointed. It's just about.
Well, that's one of the pieces too,
Which stinks, because we've got 100+ years of knowledge here.
We don't really, like you said, you don't want to talk about it all night tonight, but I think that's a very important point that us as a board needs to be able to portray to the commission that the depth that we really pay attention to these projects when they come to us, the diversity of knowledge that we provide, the background in all different aspects.
We're not just a bunch of gas bags out there listening to ourselves.
Right,
talk.
and, you know, I don't know that the commission has the level of background and knowledge and development and service and that we provide here.
Right.
And I think that's something that we should really hammer home, that to be made clear, and what, like, why overlook our involvement if we are providing this level of knowledge and input? I mean, you hire consultants, right? I mean,
Right.
we're almost a diverse, you know, to a certain extent, a diverse level of consultants, right? That we're providing our input to the
Yeah.
commission for these projects.
We don't even score a dinner out of it anymore.
And that was before the pandemic too. It was 2018.
Or thank you. Yeah. Amanda, you writing that one down?
Wants dinner.
Not the dinner part.
Wants
Sorry.
dinner.
Sorry before that stupid joke. Oh, man. All right. We wanna keep going? Or we good? All right.
So do I have consensus and process at least? I will email each of you a little bit more of a structured form to please get back to me with time to get it prepared for our agenda. So I will give you homework and give you a due date
Okay.
in your email.
So that
Just be-
that was, not to interrupt, but that was my original question about before we got into the appointments and everything, is if next month or the month after, I'm not serving, this item comes up, I just basically come up as public speaker and give my 3 minutes of, here's some topics I think you guys should talk about.
Why don't you commit those to paper
Exactly.
now and then and give them to Amanda? Whether
That-
you're here physically or not, your thoughts will be
No,
there.
I will do that, but a lot of things get stimulated during conversation too.
Our board basically had the city art manager, Amanda, essentially, and one of the members of the board just deliver the presentation. Yeah, and that's, I don't think all of us need to be there, but
No.
we could go, one of us to go, or all of us, whatever we decide.
But that's for a
I-
later, that's for a later date.
Okay?
I mean, board member Simon, I would say both would be appropriate, I believe. If you could commit some of your thoughts to paper with me, I will memorialize them
Yeah,
and we will commit to moving them forward. And I don't think there would be any opposition for you coming as a member of the public to add to the conversation of this item too. As this carries forward also, I will say that I can keep it on the next agenda if I get everything on time. There's always the ability to table it and move it on depending on how this board is changing. So I am hoping to keep it on the next agenda just because I know we may have some turnover and I don't know when. So please meet your deadlines.
Do you have one quick question about?
I have a question, a serious,
Good.
okay, Amanda, is there any restriction on who can present our report to the commission? Is there anything in our legal document that says it has to be a city board member that presents it?
A current
I'm
board
looking
member.
at it even with you. You know, I'm serious. If we decide as a board that we want a past president who is off the board, but we want him as our designated representative to present the information to the city commission, is anything legally stopping us?
I mean, I don't have an exact answer to that. I do think that it is supposed to be presented by the
Well,
board.
wait a minute, that's hearsay. Is there
I mean,
anything?
if you guys make a motion in a second at
Yeah, what are they gonna do?
Public
Stop
meeting
them?
about
Yeah,
someone else
they're gonna
presenting
stop
it?
them.
If we make
Yeah.
a motion to stick them up there, who's gonna stop us? Whether you're serving or not, if you're the most knowledgeable person,
I don't know.
well, as far as I
Maybe
know.
the most experienced on the board,
Okay.
but not the most
But it doesn't matter, I mean, if we feel there is a better representative, whether he's sitting on the board or not, to represent what we
Sure.
wanna say, who can present it articulately.
That's a bridge we
concisely,
can
and
cross
clearly,
there, I
why
don't think
not?
there'd be a problem with it. I'm not volunteering, but I think.
No, we're volunteering you,
No.
there's a difference.
I have one quick question about the third piece, third or fourth piece you were talking about the assembling or the creating of the Quincy presentation itself. If we chose to, can we choose to request images of renderings of projects that were presented, that we may say, well, these were things that we voted down? These were
Absolutely, we can supply those.
We can spice up those slides a little bit.
Yeah, well, and that's, I just wanna figure out, like, the content itself, like, I mean, rather than it just be just some text on a slide. that could
We'd be happy to supply those if you could just let us know what you need.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think,
All set?
yeah, I think we're good. Anything else on this item? We're good with the discussion? All right, new business, anybody? Other comments by members? I said it before, you guys are a great board, lots of knowledge. Wish we were a little more in use by people in the city commission, but I think we're doing good. Anything else? Chris? Your last chance, maybe here, bud.
I don't know, there's too many things to say.
Lost for words?
There's too many things to say.
At a loss, okay.
I
like to dive deeper on what,
I will let you know, if we are off, you guys are gonna have to vote for a new chair and vice chair at that point, because Butch and I are chair and vice chair, and then it'll have to be ratified by the commission, so.
That's after the new members are appointed.
Yeah. All right, if that's it,
Motion to adjourn?
I like that.
Second.
Everybody? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wild people here. Let's go home, everyone. I don't know, I could have done 7 now, but when she told us we weren't coming back, I was like, oh. I got like all
Trevor, I
these
did not
bad
say
jokes
that.
And I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Which came up today. In light of everything we're talking about, is there any parking regulation? If we put a new building up on a private property, do we have a parking regulation?
Thank you. Yes.
Parking regulations in the city apply to us?
You will need to park any new structure.
What?
You will need to park any new structure, yes.
Okay, because the residences are not part of it. I'm gonna explain something to you, the way we're structured, and maybe you can help me out. If someone asked me this, and I couldn't give them an answer. Hunter's Run